30 banned circus freaks that actually existed. Ever stop to think about what really went on under the big top, especially in those intriguing sideshow tents? For ages, folks with unique bodies and talents drew crowds, making people gasp and maybe even rethink things a bit. We saw everything from unbelievable acrobats to people who looked completely different from anyone we knew. These performers weren't just acts, they became legends. So, settle in for a look back at the incredible lives of these sideshow stars, hear about their grit, and remember the unforgettable shows from an entertainment era that's long gone. Johnny Eck. Meet Johnny Eck, famously known as the half-boy, or sometimes the man with no body. He came into the world with something called sacral agenesis, meaning he was born without the lower half of his body. But let me tell you, Johnny's story is all about guts and not letting anything hold him back. Picture this. The sideshow tent is buzzing, and out walks Johnny, cool as you please, right on his hands. And he wasn't just walking. The man was an acrobat. He'd do handstands and tricks that would impress anybody, no matter their physical shape. He even played basketball. But Johnny's world wasn't just the sideshow. He was a skilled artist too, painting and sculpting. He even had a part in the movies, appearing in Todd Browning's famous 1932 film, Freaks. Two-Headed Man. The tale of the Two-Headed Man is one of those fascinating, yet sad, stories from the early 1900 sideshows. We often don't even know his real name, but he was born with what's called parasitic twins. It's a rare thing where a second, underdeveloped twin is attached to the main body, resulting in an extra, smaller head. Naturally, this made him a huge attraction for circuses and curiosity shows. Crowds would line up to see something so unusual and, sadly, so exploitable. The condition itself comes from embryos not separating completely early on. It makes you think about how interested people are in the extraordinary, but also about the ethical side of putting folks with physical differences on display like that. Minnie Woolsey, Cuckoo. Minnie Woolsey, born way back in 1880 down in Georgia, had a very rare condition called Firko-Seckel syndrome. Folks sometimes called it bird-headed dwarfism. It gave her unique appearance, a smaller head, a nose shaped a bit like a beak, and a receding chin. Instead of hiding, Cuckoo owned her look. She created this whole persona, dressing up in fantastic feathered outfits, complete with a big plume on her headdress, playing up the bird girl image. Watching her perform was something else. She came up with these unique, fluttery dances, moving her arms like wings. It was captivating, and people were fascinated by how she turned her physical traits into real showmanship. Maurice Tilllet. Let's talk about Maurice Tilllet, born over in Russia back in 1903. Until he was getting close to his 20s, Maurice looked pretty much like any other fella. But around 17, things started changing dramatically because of a condition called acromegaly. His body produced too much growth hormone, making the bones in his face, hands, and feet get much larger. Now, Maurice wasn't just his appearance. He was sharp as a tack, spoke nearly 10 languages, and even penned poetry. Knowing people would judge him by his looks, he decided to lean into it. He got into theater and then, in 1937, made his way to the USA. Over here, he jumped into professional wrestling and became a big star known as the French Angel, a nod to his parents. He even snagged the heavyweight title in the American Wrestling Association. He wasn't hiding. He was performing, showing off his power and spirit. Before he passed in 1954, Maurice agreed to have molds made of his head. 3 originals exist. 2 are safe in museums, keeping his unique image alive, and one's privately owned. Lots of copies have been made since, cementing his place in our memory. Daisy and Violet Hilton. Born back in 1908, Daisy and Violet Hilton were conjoined twins, linked at the hip and sharing blood flow. They arrived in a world often unkind to difference. Their birth mother, Kate Skinner, actually worked for a woman named Mary Hilton, who saw dollar signs instead of little girls. Mary Hilton basically bought the twins and pushed them right into the sideshow spotlight. advertising them as something you just had to see. They traveled all over, performing everywhere, and became well-known entertainers in the first half of the 20th century. They learned to sing and dance, sharing their talents while living with their unique connection. Though they found fame and made money, their lives were mostly run by others profiting off them. They really just wanted to be independent, away from the often exploitative sideshow scene. Sadly, both Daisy and Violet passed away in 1969 due to the Hong Kong flu. Pip and Flip. You might have heard of Pip and Flip, twin sisters who were often billed as pinheads. Sometimes they were called the twins of Yucatan, hinting they were from there, but nobody's really sure where they were born. They had microcephaly, which meant they had smaller heads and some intellectual disabilities. Pip and Flip made their living in the sideshow world, which could certainly be exploitative, performing notably with the Circus of Horrors. People who knew them said they were generally happy, innocent souls, maybe even a bit charming. Audiences weren't just looking at their difference. They were drawn to their cheerful energy. Their role in the 1932 movie Freaks made them more widely known and, like others in the film, got people talking about how society treated folks with disabilities. Which performer's story resonated with you the most and why? Thinking about all these incredible individuals, which one's story really sticks with you? Is there a particular life or struggle that you find especially moving or interesting? Frances Okconor. Imagine being born without arms and learning to do everything with your feet. That was Frances Okconor. From a young age, she figured out how to handle daily life, eating, drinking, writing letters, even threading a needle and sewing, all using just her feet. It's pretty amazing dexterity. When she was just 15, Frances took her unique talents to the big time, joining the famous Ringling Brothers Circus. She lived in Sheridan with her mom, who helped manage her act. Her performances weren't about shock value. They showed the incredible things she could do. She'd eat, drink, write things the audience did every day without thinking, but she did them in a way that was astonishing and really held your attention. She made the ordinary seem extraordinary. Joe Martin Lurel. Here's a fellow you wouldn't forget. Joe Martin Lurel, born in 1886. He got the nickname the Owl Man because of his unbelievable neck flexibility. Get this, he could twist his head a full 180 degrees around and even walk forward while looking straight backward. It was a sight that truly amazed folks. In 1921, Joe brought this incredible ability over to the United States and joined the legendary Barnum and Bailey Circus. This was right in the circus heyday, and he became quite the popular draw. His fame even landed his picture in Life magazine in 1940, cementing his place as one of the more unusual performers of the time. Sadly, Joe Lurel passed away from a heart attack in 1955. Pauline Musters. Pauline Musters, born over in the Netherlands in 1876, hold a pretty unique record. She's in the Guinness World Records as the shortest adult woman ever documented, standing only 21.8 inches tall. Despite her tiny stature, Pauline had a big stage presence and real talent that wowed the crowds. She was a talented acrobat and a surprisingly graceful dancer. Her performances really defied what people expected, showing that amazing things could be done no matter your physical size. It's a shame her life was so short. Pauline died in New York City in 1895 when she was only 19 due to pneumonia and meningitis. Grace McDaniels. Let's talk about Grace McDaniels. Here was a woman who, facing some real hurdles, built a successful career in the sideshow world. Born in 1888, Grace had Sturge-Weber syndrome, a rare condition that affects blood vessel development and often causes noticeable birthmarks on the face. Because of this, she was billed as the Mule-Faced Woman, a name that sounds pretty harsh to our ears today. Around the 1930s, Grace joined up with Harry Lewiston's circus. Sideshows were huge entertainment back then, and Grace's distinctive look brought in big crowds. For Grace, the circus wasn't just a job. It was how she supported herself and her son, Elmer, who actually traveled the country with her. Suzie. Suzie was a woman who dealt with a rare skin condition called ichthyosis. The name comes from the Greek word for fish because it causes the skin to become extremely dry and scaly. Unfortunately, back then, people with this condition were sometimes cruelly called things like alligator skin or fish scale people. For Suzie, the rough, cracked texture of her skin led to the particularly unkind nickname elephant skin. Her appearance made her a point of interest in circus sideshows, where she was presented as a curiosity. While this gave her a way to make a living, it's important to remember the daily struggles she likely faced. Ichthyosis isn't just about looks. It can be physically uncomfortable and needs constant attention. Crayo Farini. Born over in Laos around 1876, Crayo had a condition called hypertrichosis, which means she had excessive hair growth all over her body. This, combined with some of her facial features, led people to unfairly call her the missing link. That awful term implied she wasn't fully human, somehow stuck between apes and people. An explorer discovered Crayo, recognizing she could be profitable, and brought her to Europe. There, she was put on display like a strange object, presented almost as scientific proof for evolutionary ideas, playing right into the Victorian fascination with anything exotic or unknown. From Europe, she ended up in the USA, becoming a major star in PT. Barnum shows. Crayo's life really shows the exploitative side of the sideshow business and how damaging it was to label people based on how they looked. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. If you're finding these stories as fascinating as I do and plan to stick around for the whole video, maybe just let me know by typing a 1 down in the comments. Fedor Jevtichu. Fedor, who hailed from Russia, also lived with hypertrichosis, the condition causing lots of hair growth everywhere, face included. It gave him a very unique look, which, sadly, led to him being exhibited as a sort of human oddity. Fedor became quite famous in PT, Barnum's renowned sideshow, a place that both showcased and took advantage of human differences. Though the way people described him back then often stripped him of his humanity, his stage presence and unusual appearance really drew audiences in. He was a well-known figure in entertainment. Here's an interesting tidbit. Decades later, Fedor's appearance is said to have partly inspired the look of Chewbacca, the beloved Star Wars character. It's an unexpected link that adds another layer to Fedor's story, reminding us of his lasting image, even while we acknowledge how problematically he was presented in his own time. Marianne started out living a fairly ordinary life over in Britain. She worked as a nurse and got married to a fellow named Thomas Bevan. But sometime after getting married, she started showing signs of acromegaly. This condition makes bones and tissues grow excessively, causing big changes in facial features and overall appearance. Life took a tragic turn when Mary Ann's husband passed away, leaving her alone to raise her children. Back then, options for women, especially single moms, were scarce. She made the incredibly tough choice to enter the world of sideshows. Billed cruelly as the ugliest woman in the world, Mary Ann put up with the insensitive and exploitative environment just so she could provide for her family. Pansy Chinery. Let's zip back to the excitement of a 1916 circus and meet someone truly daring. Iana Pansy Chinery. Pansy did an act that took unbelievable strength, coordination, and, let's face it, a whole lot of nerve. Picture this. She's doing an aerial routine, swinging way up high above the audience, held up only by her teeth. Acts like that were incredibly popular back in that circus era. People loved the thrill of danger and seeing amazing physical feats. Pansy, with her incredible skill and pure bravery, really stood out. She stretched the limits of what seemed possible, showing amazing control and flexibility. Bill Dirks. Now let's talk about Bill Dirks. Here's a guy who, at 40 years old, decided to completely change his life and found surprising fame on the traveling circus circuit. After living a pretty normal life in his hometown in Alabama, Bill opted for a very unusual career. He created this unique persona, calling himself the man with 3 eyes and 2 noses. Bill was clever. He used makeup to create the illusion of a third eye right between his 2 noses. Even though it was a trick, audiences ate it up. Sideshows thrived on anything strange or unexpected, and Bill's made-up oddity was a perfect fit. He became a huge draw pretty quickly, leaving his old life behind for a new one based on spectacle and illusion. Alice Elizabeth Doerty. Alice Elizabeth Doerty was born with hypertrichosis lanuginosa, meaning she came into the world covered in a layer of long, fine hair. This very unusual, though harmless, trait made people incredibly curious and, sadly, led to her being put on display in sideshows. Recognizing how fascinated the public was, Alice's parents made the difficult choice to exhibit her. Looking back now, it seems exploitative, but it's worth trying to understand the times and the limited choices families might have faced in those situations. Billed as the Minnesota Woolly Girl, or sometimes insensitively called the Wolf Child, Alice became a familiar face in the sideshow world. People were captivated by her unique look, a striking example of just how varied human beings can be. Levery Vailey. Here's one that definitely turned heads. Levery Vailey, often known by her stage name Charmian. Levery was known for being incredibly strong and a fantastic trapeze artist. But what really made her famous was her incredibly bold act. She would actually disrobe while performing her high-flying routine. Can you imagine the audience reaction? Gasps and whispers as Charmian, swinging high overhead, gracefully went through her trapeze moves while simultaneously taking off her costume. This daring performance was a huge sensation. It really pushed the envelope of what was considered acceptable in a circus and challenged the social norms of the day. What surprised you most about the lives and experiences of these sideshow figures? Hearing about all these different performers, what's something that really surprised you? Was there a particular story or detail about their lives that you didn't expect? Millie and Christine McCoy. The story of Millie and Christine McCoy, often presented as the two-headed nightingale, is truly inspiring. It shows amazing resilience and how the human spirit can triumph over huge obstacles. Born into slavery in North Carolina in 1851, Millie and Christine were conjoined twins, fused at the lower part of their spines. They faced the terrible double burden of having a physical difference and being born into a system that stole their basic rights. Despite these enormous hurdles, Millie and Christine's talents couldn't be hidden. They had lovely singing voices and even learned several languages. Though they were exploited early on, they eventually gained their freedom and took control of their careers, becoming celebrated circus performers. Eduardo Prey. Eduardo Prey was a Canadian giant who really captured people's attention with his amazing height and physical strength. Born Joseph Edouard Beaupré Petre in 1881, Edouard was noticeably tall right from a young age. He found his niche in the world of sideshows, where his size naturally made him an attraction. But Edouard wasn't just tall, he was incredibly strong too. He got into wrestling and became quite a powerhouse athlete, showing off both his strength and surprising agility. He even joined the famous Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, becoming a star performer. While being a giant surely came with many difficulties, Edouard embraced his unique characteristics and built a successful career from them. Teao Valenuela. Known around as the heaviest man in the world, Teao Valenuela reportedly weighed an incredible 645 pounds. Pictures from the time show his remarkable size and capture the public's fascination with it. While Teao seemed to enjoy being a local celebrity of sorts, carrying that much weight must have presented enormous challenges. Simple daily activities that most folks don't think twice about were likely very difficult for him, affecting his ability to get around and his overall health. In a time before we understood much about obesity and its health risks, Teao found a way to make a living by showcasing his size. For him, these exhibitions were a way to support himself and gain some recognition in his community. Unzie. Unzie was born with albinism, meaning he lacked pigment in his skin, hair, and eyes. His striking appearance made him stand out, especially in an era when the condition was less understood. When he was young, show promoters discovered Unzie, unfortunately seeing his difference mainly as a way to make money. He was pulled into the world of circuses and sideshows, where he became known simply as the albino. He performed with several different circuses over the years, including the big one, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, where his unique look drew large audiences. Grady Styles Jr. The story of Grady Styles Jr., known widely as Lobster Boy, is a complicated one. Born with ectrodactyly, a genetic condition that causes hands and feet to form differently, often resembling claws, Grady's life was deeply connected to the sideshow world. It was something of a family tradition. He became a performer, displaying his difference for curious crowds. Unfortunately, Grady battled alcoholism, and his personal life was filled with conflict. Tragically, things took a very dark turn in 1978 when he committed a terrible crime, murdering his daughter's fiancée. This violent act led to him being imprisoned and cast a long, dark shadow over his life and his family sideshow legacy. Eli Bowen. Born way back